Welcome to Rotary Matters on Access Radio, Arrow FM 92.7 and Wairarapa TV. I'm Marilyn Donna, and over the next hour, I'll be talking to you about the activities of the Masterton South Rotary Club, in which I'm a member, and other activities in the Wairarapa clubs. First of all, what can I say what a pleasure it is to actually be back on Rotary Matters after COVID-19, and it is really good to be back in the desk again. Our clubs are now back into business, into our normal meeting procedure, and of course, because it was June just this last month, we've had a lot of our clubs have had their president's changeover. So today it's going to be my privilege to talk to Rob Irwin, who is our new president at Masterton South, and he's going to be talking about his vision for this year. And later on, I'm going to welcome our other guest, who's John Bunny, who's going to be talking about some of our club activities, in particular our kiddies, the cycle playground. So we did hope to have Rebecca Ekberg, who was our exchange student. Rebecca is from Switzerland, and she's had a whole year. In fact, she's had an extended year here, and she stayed with the Stokeleys in Carterton, isn't it? Thank you, Rob. And then she had 3 host families in Masterton, because she decided to stay on, even though she could have just got back, I think, when lockdown occurred, but she decided to stay on. So unfortunately, she's not well today. So I have had to call in John, who'll be a good substitute. The off-course substitute, as they say. Anyway, welcome, Rob. It's lovely to see you, and President Rob, I should say. So Rob, could you tell me a bit about, when did you come into Rotary and all, what's your sort of hookup with Rotary? How did you get involved?
Thank you, Marilyn, and thanks for the opportunity to talk today. I must say, it's a pleasure being interviewed by a friendly face. And,
do you have some interviews that aren't friendly?
Oh, mostly friendly. I have had in my career one or two that haven't been all that friendly, but mostly good.
Oh, that's good.
Kim Hill gave me a hard time in my other life as a doctor and in charge of the senior medical staff at Masterton Hospital when we were talking about closing the hospital, and we had Winston Peters up, and he fell asleep in front of the senior medical staff. And of course, that's what the television and press people concentrated on more than what was actually happening at the hospital.
So just going back to that, I remember that time because I was one of the persons who held hands around the hospital back in the day.
Yes, that was a very special time for the Wairarapa. Although there's going to be some changes coming shortly, I think. There's rationalisation of the number of DHBs. The government's had the Heather Simpson reports come out, and it's recommending reducing the numbers over the next number of years.
And do you think that's a good thing?
Oh, it's a difficult thing for a small place like us. We've got our own destiny in our hands, whereas if we amalgamate with a bigger centre, we can be swallowed up and forgotten about. And in fact, I've seen it happen before. The management staff get decimated by being taken away to, if they're capable people, they get taken away by the bigger centres and used there, but they haven't got the same calibre of staff left behind. And it's a tricky business. And
it's also a different culture, isn't there, between the smaller towns and the and the bigger towns?
Yeah, I must say, I'll put this on here. If we do actually amalgamate, then I'd rather we didn't go with Wellington and the Hut as we have tried before. I think would be more helpful if we were amalgamated with Mid-Central, which is a rural centre, that's Manawatu, or even Hawke's Bay, which is very rural.
Which would be much more in keeping with the people in
I think so.
Both areas. Oh, interesting.
Anyway. But anyway, it's a shame Rebecca's not here today. She is a very impressive young lady who speaks incredibly good English. She's got about half a dozen languages, and she was a German part of the, because Switzerland's basically in three parts. It's France, Germany, and Italy, and she lived in the German part, Zurich. But she's very capable of standing in front of a crowd at the age of 17 and talking very, very well indeed.
Yes, I was quite amazed when she said about the fact that she had I knew she had the Swedish because of her mother or father, but I didn't realise she also was able to speak those other languages. Yeah,
no, it's a talent that we in isolated New Zealand don't really get an opportunity to do.
No.
We don't have neighbours who speak different foreign languages, so never mind.
Anyway, apart from that, when did you first join Rotary?
I wasn't sure. I meant to look it up, but I think it wasn't all that. It was about 2013 probably, I'm not sure.
You must have been there before me though.
Oh, right.
So I was... No, you were there before me because I was 2012, yes.
Well, maybe 2009 or 10.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm not entirely sure. But it's been a great club because it's a very friendly club. It's a fun club. It's got some very, very good people in it. And it welcomed me with open arms, and I was very happy to go and join Rotary.
So what would you consider some of the major achievements that you've been involved with in your time so far with Rotary?
Well, the main one is the Rarotonga Medical Health Clinic that David Baker, who unfortunately is in Wellington Hospital very unwell, having had a road traffic accident, and I and Paul Snellgrove, who's a co-owner of Transit New Zealand, put together this package of refurbishing a tired old country bus, not a big one, with a door opening in the middle of it, and turning it into a health clinic with equipment that can be fairly easily used, and we packed that all off and sent it to Rarotonga. It took about a year and a half to go from go to woe, and we had a lot of amazing help on the way. It was a great project, a very big project, and we ended up with a very brightly coloured bus with Rarotongan children on the back of it and logos of Health Matters and things like that, with a lot of Rotary wheels, and great thing.
It was an amazing achievement, really, wasn't it? And I mean, just the matter of getting the finances for that. I remember both you and David spending so much time with Rotary International trying to get it all set up as a project.
Yes, it did take quite a bit of time. We had to go and visit all our District 9940 clubs, which are the lower half of New Zealand, of the North Island, I mean, and speak to them and ask them for pledges for finances. Each pledge we got, we would get an equal amount in New Zealand dollars. But the big breakthrough came when there were some funds which were called district designated funds. Each of the districts have funds which are put in 3 years before, and they have to be used at 3 years later. And if they're not used, then they can be used for other things. And so we got funds from our district and from the Auckland district and from South Island district. We had 4 districts putting money in, which just made life easy. Once we'd got past that, we realised we were go. So the green light came on, and we could buy the bus and put it into the workshop and get the work done by the amazing transit team that we had there, and then get it up to Auckland and onto a ship and over to Rarotonga.
And I know that you and David and I think Paul have been over to Rarotonga, haven't you, since that happened? Yeah.
Yes, we have. We went over before to try and establish that they really wanted it, and then we went over to deliver it, and there was a great ceremony there which was very colourful. And then we've been back later to see how well it's going.
I think it's amazing, really. I mean, and to have come from a smaller club. Well, and when you think about it, in a smaller town in New Zealand to do something, and of course that was all to do with the Committee of International. We'll talk about committees a bit later, but you haven't been before. You've now become the president, but before that you went to something called PETS. Could you explain what PETS is?
Well, Rotary's a great family, and it's full of most amazing people who are so inspirational, full of energy, and it's like a beehive. It's just buzzing. So we, as each incoming president is expected to go to a conference, and it's held up in Auckland, near the Panmure Handle Basin, and Waituna's the name of the hotel. So when you go there, it's for about 3 days, and you have, courses all the way through, led by these great people who tell you what Rotary's about and how to run your clubs and what you should do. And I found it really, really good. Came back. I wished all of our Rotary Club could go and get involved in this sort of thing, but of course you can't. It would be too big. The PETS is South Pacific President-elect, yes.
Training
session. And so from the Wairarapa we had 3. We were to have 4 president-elects going, but one of them, unfortunately, became seriously unwell with a bee sting, Alan Lodge, and he actually died. So the Masterton Club had to find another president, which they've managed to do. The other 2 from South Wairarapa and Carterton were delightful people, nice to meet them, and we all hope to work well together as a unit in the valley. We used to call ourselves a cluster, but that name's now being frowned on because of COVID.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
So what's the new buzzword?
Well, I'm not sure. It's being worked on.
So those changeovers would have happened too, because South Wairarapa had theirs. You went to that, didn't you?
Yes. Yes, ours was first.
Yes, and of course it was rather a formal one this year. We're waiting to welcome you informally later on in the year, because we didn't have time to organise a bit of a layer up or something for because normally Marston South has a lot of fun to the changeover night. So you'll be in for a bit of a surprise at the end of the year. Anyway, so the changeover at South Wairarapa, now they had something quite particular there, because they had a cheque presented from the Martinborough Fair, didn't they? Can you tell us something about that?
They did, yes. They had their changeover at Brackenridge, and it was well attended. The district governor was there and the local mayor. And so during the course of the evening, a huge cheque, of course they're made about 2 metres long and a metre wide.
Oh, really? Yes.
Yeah. It presented to the Rotary Club of South Wairarapa because of the Martinborough Fair. The money was collected, and they actually made a milestone this year and got $100,000.
That's amazing.
That's a huge amount of money.
Yes.
But even then, the president-elect, Brian Baxter, who actually became president that night, in his presidential address, he was worried that with COVID, the Martinborough Fair could have completely collapsed, and their total reliance on that source of income for charity would have disappeared.
They actually just got over in time, didn't they? Because they have it on the first Saturday in February and the first Saturday in March, so they were very lucky.
Yes, that's right. They were very lucky indeed.
Yeah. And Carterton has had theirs was it last evening?
We had 2 on the same day. We had a breakfast one at Masterton.
Oh, you've had the breakfast at Masterton, yes.
And Tom Ward took over. He's a staunch Rotarian, and he's done it all before. This is his third time as president, so
oh gosh,
he's a well-practiced man, and that was nice.
Yeah.
And then the one down in Carterton we had on Thursday night, last night that is, and that was a very nice affair as well. And Rod O'Leary's taken over from Alan Turner, and so it's new blood now for the Wairarapa.
Yeah.
And
that's excellent.
we also had the privilege of going to the district governor changeover.
Oh yes, tell me about that. Now we have got an assistant district governor with our own Rob Cameron, haven't we? From the club, from our club.
Yes, there are actually 13 in the district. I was surprised to know how many there were, but there are 13 assistant district governors, and there's one district governor for District 9940, the lower half of the North Island. And poor old John Moe was the previous district governor. He got flattened by the COVID crisis, and they'd just got their plans totally organised for the convention that they were going to have for 9940 in Lower Hutt, and it just wasn't possible.
No, because that's usually held in April, isn't it?
Yes, so it had to be cancelled. They did do it with Zoom, so there was a Zoom session on this event, which was good, but not the same as being there. No, it's not. So.
And I think some of the things that she was talking about, that now the new governor is Gillian Jones, is that right?
Yes, the new governor is Gillian Jones, and she actually lives in Greytown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's a Wellington Rotary Club member, but she actually lives in Greytown, and so she's quite affiliated with the Wairarapa, and she's got her team now has got two Wairarapa people in it. One of them's the secretary, and the other is, I think, treasurer. So Graham Evans has got one of those jobs, and Alan Turner has taken on the other.
So from what she sort of was talking about, I believe that you sort of got some ideas for your strategy, because it's revise and revitalise. That's the theme, isn't it? So tell me a bit about what that is and where does it all come from.
Well, it's because of COVID, actually. A lot of the clubs have been quite badly affected by having had this pandemic and not being able to meet in the usual places and do the usual things. So the idea is to just take a look at all of the things that the club does and then move forwards. So the idea is to say, okay, we're doing this now, do we need to do it? So you can scrap some things.
Oh,
secondly,
okay,
you can look at other things we do and you say, okay, we're doing this, but we're not doing it as well as we could do it, so therefore perhaps we should change it. And then the last thing is we'll keep it as it is.
Yeah, so it's almost like everything, we're not quite going back to normal. It's going to be the new normal, isn't it, really?
Yes.
And it's probably been quite a good wake-up call for all sorts of organisations, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. I've got some ideas which it may or may not be successful, but the plan would be we're going to have a strategy session next Tuesday looking at everything that we do and then concentrate on the most important ones. So there's certain things that we've really got to talk about at length. The other stuff, the new directors and me have gone through the list and we've given a tick to most of the stuff, and there's a few things that we've put up for change, and these will get discussed too at the strategy meeting, but hopefully not taking too long because time will be limited. But yeah, and then after that strategy meeting we'll look at what we do, put out a plan and be quite prepared to revise it in another 3 months. So
if you were sort of talking to someone who didn't know much about what Rotary does, I mean, some of these sort of nuts and bolts things. So there's meetings. Now our club has meetings once a week.
Yes.
So what goes on at a meeting like that?
Well, we generally get a speaker to come, so it's quite structured. We've got 4 meetings a month. So the first meeting of the month, we have a speaker, and it's usually a fairly short meeting because people then go to Rotary members' homes and divide into committees where they have their own committee meetings. and these committees decide on what the committees are supposed to decide on, whether it's international or youth and vocational or club services, and then they'll make put that in the minutes. That comes back to the directors to look at, and it is just put in the archives, and sometimes it involves spending money, so the directors then approve whether the money can be spent, which is good, and that's how that works. On the second and third and fourth Tuesdays is usually a speaker, which is comes from either within the area or outside the area. And so at the end of the day, we have our start the meeting, do a bit of club business, have our meal, and then have the speaker. Speaker speaks to the club. Questions are asked afterwards. The speaker's thanked and given a small presentation, and that's the end of it.
But you're hoping perhaps to perhaps revitalise some of the meetings and perhaps do something a bit different. Is that what you feel, that we need to be a bit more sociable, or not sociable, perhaps just something a bit different? Yeah, well,
we've got to keep the fun thing going, because we are a fun club, and so the idea would be to have some entertainment at times, and it can't be all the time, because I've been told already that these things just don't happen. If you're going to organise a fun evening like a quiz night or maybe a card night or snooker night or all sorts of things that people might like to do, it does take organisation, and so you just can't fall into it. So I'm going to see how that goes. I'll have to have some good people to get this sort of stuff organised if it's going to happen at all. So otherwise, the speaker, the person who gets the speakers, generally has quite a hard job, because
it's really hard to find one who's not just interesting enough, but stimulating as a speaker. And we've had some very good speakers.
Oh, we have.
But tell me about with the committees. Now people say, well, what does Rotary do in the town? Or what are some of the aspects of the committees that you perhaps would like to see perhaps expanded even?
Well, I think for my year, the one thing I really, really want to do is to put out more publicity. I think Rotary is a shy sort of organisation, does a lot of good, a huge amount of good in the community and elsewhere, and yet it doesn't really put itself out and say we've done this. So my plan is to make sure we try and record everything we do as much as we can, get some exciting, hopefully, photos of stuff, put a few captions on, and then I would love to have a monthly Rotary, like Rotary Matters here, but we'd have a monthly Rotary Wheel Turns or something, which is able to be put into the local papers, and it involves all of the clubs, because that's the other thing. I really want to see the 4 clubs in the Wairarapa working together in this sort of way, so that there's no parochialism. We're all happy to be Rotarians, and we're all happy to get out there and do the job.
So perhaps we won't call it a cluster, we'll call it a bubble.
Well, it could be a bubble.
It could be a bubble, a Rotary bubble. Yeah.
I was impressed too at Carterton, because they invited the Lions president along as well, and they work together hand in hand too. So I think that's another thing we've got to look at.
Because there are a lot of organisations in the Wairarapa that do so many things, so many volunteer things.
They do.
Yeah, yes, it's true.
Yeah, no, if you looked at what the Marston South Rotary has done over the years,
I've got the list actually.
There's about 2 pages
in case I need to fill it. Yeah,
it's amazing.
It is
how much
amazing.
has happened over those years.
So, so there's international, which, as you said, there's been a lot that has been done with the medical, but also international has the ERKs. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Emergency response kits, called ERKs. The thing there is that they were started in the 1990s, because before that there were emergency kits which were set up, but they weren't consistent, so they didn't have the same things in them. It was a bit of a pig in a poke. But somebody, I think it was Stuart Batty, got the idea it'd be good to set this thing running with standardised equipment for emergencies in the first instance. So if there's a cyclone, and there's frequently cyclones occurring over in the islands. These things are sometimes stored in the destination. So in Fiji they may well be stored and they can be used straight away, or they're sent over by ship. There's a depot in Auckland that keeps them. Each one costs $600, and so we frequently top them up, so to speak. So internationals give us, say, $3,000, and that would pay for 5 of these things.
I think there was something during lockdown, wasn't there?
Oh, that was a terrible Cyclone Harold.
Yes.
And that came after the Samoan measles outbreak, which was also terrible. And I think it went across Fiji and Tonga, and I can't think of the other one, sorry.
Yes, but there were some. And also then we've got community, and that of course is very involved with things like food bank, and that's the big one, isn't it, really?
Yes, well, because of COVID, I think there'll be more need in the community, and so I've put more money from our budget into the community committee, and I think they've got to keep their eye to the ground and just see when people are hurting, and we'll be happy to help out as much as we can. And it's not just finances, we've got to also, as a club, help out in other ways. So.
Yeah. When you talk about budget, so South Wairarapa gets its money from their big Martha Fair, don't they?
Yeah.
So what are our major money spinners? Because the money spinners, but all the funds go back into the club, don't they?
They do. Yeah. They do. So South Wairarapa has budgeted for $90,000, and they used to spend it all, but the new president wants to have a bit of a fund built up in case of hard times when they can't get as much as that. Masterton, South's main money earners have been the car boot. They in the RSA car park between Chapel Street and Essex Street.
Essex Street, yes.
They've got this public car park which the council allow Rotary to lease out to stall holders at $7 a car park, and those who use more than one car park pay double the amount. And there's a vegetable van that comes across from Levin, and it's a desirable place to. I won't advertise, but if you want fresh vegetables, you could have a look at it.
It's on a Sunday morning. This was quite a loss, wasn't it, during lockdown? So it really needs to be revitalised, doesn't it, the car boot? Because otherwise, it will not be as profitable. And as I said, the money comes back to the club, but then the money is then spent on all these community projects that we do. Yeah.
Yes, we have about 25,000 disposable, and that we can put that into our committees. About half of, a bit less than half of it comes from the car boot, and then the other half would come from the mini putt.
Oh yes, because we've just had a photo in the paper for the mini putt.
Yes, indeed. So the mini putt was a Rotary initiative many years ago, and it's been refurbished. Had one major refurbishment, and it's ticking along quite nicely. Of course, it's more of a summer activity than a winter activity, but we have a person who runs it, and that person is allowed a percentage of the finances that come through, and Rotary takes the rest, and Rotary pays the actual running expenses of the mini putt. And
there's also a bicycle hire there too, isn't there? Yeah.
Yes, it's in behind the mini putt, which is very pleasant and very very well used in the summer, but not so much in the winter.
And also, one of the other committees I was director of once is Youth and Vocational, and that's quite a biggie, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Youth and Vocational. Yeah.
Yes, there are certain things that happen every year for youth, and we try and help them along the way. We've got young people who are sent up to the science fair in Auckland, and there's a youth leader course which is held in the hut, and that's about a 5-day course for a person, or for we choose one usually, one person who goes down to, who's been picked as a potential leader, and that's been excellent. We have Outward Bound, and we have the Spirit of Adventure.
And there's also Ripen, which is the younger one, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that still going?
Yeah. Ripen. I don't think we supported that so much. It was held at Inglewood.
That's right.
This last year, and we put our money into another organisation which is more local for talented children. So never mind. That was one of the things. We do Rider, which is Rotary Youth driving.
Yes, that's right. Then that is really amazing. That was all set to go in March too, wasn't it? This year, and it had to be cancelled. Yes.
Yes. No, that's a great thing for getting the schools to come along, and they learn about the dangers of cars, particularly, but also the joy of cars.
Yes, it's a very good organisation. So hopefully that will go ahead.
Yeah.
Will be picked up next year. Yeah.
One doesn't know, what COVID's is holding in store for us.
No.
At the moment we're doing nicely, but it could all go to custard.
It could all go to custard, unfortunately. So, if you were talking about Rotary, we obviously want to get people to join, and not necessarily because a lot of people in Rotary are of an ageing, it's a slightly ageing population, isn't it, in Rotary?
Yes.
How do we sort of manage to, get people younger?
Okay, I'm glad you raised that question, because that's one of the things I'd really like to do, and that is to get out there and show ourselves to the young people. And we've not really had a decent Facebook presence, and I'm sure we can do a lot better with that, and also with all the other media that the young people watch and follow. I think the essence there is to have somebody who's really keen on it, and also is capable to run it and just do the changes, so that every day or every few days there's something new happening with Rotary, and that would be fantastic. So I really want that to happen. And
do you think it's because younger people are not that keen on joining clubs?
Yeah. The constitution that Rotary's got is fairly restrictive, and we've had to change. We're going to be changing that this year. We've got, I think, a 2005 version, and the newer constitution, 2019 is the last one. So my plan is to put that up to the club, and we'll change it. That allows the club to do things that are less rigid, so that we can have a satellite club, so that we are the parent club, and there's another group that do their own thing around town. They might have coffee meetings, or they might not meet every day, or they might meet online. So there's that. That'll be a new thing. There's also a thing that's called Passport Club. So if you join a passport club, it means that I guess you've got a valid passport, and you can trip off overseas and help out with projects in other countries, Rotary projects that places like the islands might be a bit, in need of help, because a lot of these people's clubs are very small. So that's another way we could do it, and anything's possible. So, what we would really like to see is young people getting involved in Rotary, but not actually having to come to the boring old meetings or all of that, but just do their own thing, but still be associated with us. There's a lot of very wise people around in Rotary. There's a lot of experience in Rotary, and I'm sure although the young do think they know everything, that's all right, I don't mind, but we could be used as a need to help these people by giving them some experience. Yeah.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Well, it all sounds really exciting for this year coming. Now, just to give you a bit of a break, and we're going to welcome John Bunny, who's just walked into the studio. I'm just going to put on some music. I thought, because there's a bit of Scottish background as far as you're concerned, isn't there? Would there be a bit of Scotland?
Well, a little bit of Northern Ireland and Scotland, yes.
Oh, yeah, well, I've just got a little touch of Scotland here for you. So we'll just...
That'll be delightful.
We'll just...
By yon bonny bank banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love wherever was to gae, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. And he'll take the high road, and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland the fall year. But me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. Where we parted in yon shady glen, on the steep, steep side of Ben Lomond, where in purple hue the hill and hills we view, and the moon looks out through the gloaming. And you take the high road, and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland for you. But me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. The wee bird is sing, and the wild flowers spring, and in sunshine the waters are sleeping. But the broken-hearted cares me second spring, though the way for me sees through their greeting. And you'll take the high road, and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland for you. But me and my true love will never meet again on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Well, there we are, Rob. That was particularly for a bit of Scottish thing, but as John, who has just arrived, has said there was a bit of an oldie. It was a bit of an oldie, but I was looking through my bank of CDs. Now, we'd like to welcome John Bunny from our club. And John, you have had quite a bit to do with the kiddies cycle track down at the northern end of the town. Could you perhaps talk about it and tell us something about it and how you feel it's going?
Yeah, thank you, Marilyn. Well, as you know, it started when I visited my son in Australia, and we noticed that in his small town they had a children's cycle track, which I thought was fantastic. It was all tar sealed and had everything available for children to go and learn basically how to ride prior to them going on the road. So I thought, well, that'd be a great asset for Marston to have. We didn't have one of those. It would build on the other assets that Marston South has in Queen Elizabeth Park, which is obviously the children's own playground, and the mini putt, which is well used. So the decision was made to put a cycle track in. It took quite a bit of time for ourselves and council to decide as to where that might go. And as you know, it's now been sited next to the skate park at the northern end of town, next to the roundabout. So we set about raising money. It was to be funded mainly by Marston South Rotary Club. So they were the main funders of that, and we also got money from several other trusts around who deal with that type of application. We spent somewhere around about $75,000 on the track, and it is what it is that you see today. Well used. I go past there most days. In fact, I went past this morning and I see one of the preschool had walked down there, and the kiddies were running around on there and having a great time
that's good.
running on the tar seal as opposed to running on the grass. So I've seen everybody. I've seen wheelchairs on there. I've seen all sorts of people. So it is well used. It is well patronised. It's in a good location. It'll be further enhanced, of course, when the skate park gets upgraded.
Yes.
So it is a great asset to Masterton. Plain and simple, very like the one at Harcourt Park in Upper Hutt, if anybody's been to that one, and also the one down by Avalon is exactly the same. Quite simple in its concept, but very worthwhile in terms of what it delivers.
And there's quite a few of the kids who use it. Now, have there been any problems about it?
Yeah, well, we have had a continuing problem with our signs being broken off, and we've had more damage in the last few days. I have to say it's most frustrating to be continually putting those signs back up where they are well secured. I mean, we've tech screwed those and bolted them, but still, unfortunately, they get broken off. And I guess if we would make an appeal, I'd make an appeal to the public, to the general public. There must be people driving past there all the time. We'd really like to try and stop this continuing vandalism if we could. And I think it's up to everybody to keep their eyes and ears open and just watching on that area. And if they see people damaging the signs, then they can either ring Crime Stoppers or ring the police station and just report it. But it is costly. It's costing the Rotary Club, which is also costing the citizens, because we raise our money, and Rob's already probably mentioned, through car boot and that sort of thing.
Yes,
It's the citizens of Masterton that are putting that money in. We've put that into the cycle track, and it's just frustrating. I mean, it's just they're breaking them off and leaving them there. You know, they're not even taking them away. I mean, and it's just that continual damage that is, and I guess really it's stopping us from further enhancing it. You know,
yes, because it's other places they've got traffic lights and things, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, the Carterton one is just opened in the middle of Carterton, and that's got traffic lights and a lot of other extra things. But we're reluctant to add those extra things in there because we just don't simply want to create something that becomes a target and for more vandalism. So it is frustrating. And as I say, if we could ask, and I'm sure the parents that are there, I mean, look, fairly, somebody must know who's doing the damage. Somebody must know who's doing it. So all we're asking that if people just keep their eye open for us and help us trying to stop it.
Is there any way that you can improve the posts and the things, you know, that are in? Or are they pretty solid?
No, we're doing we're doing a bit of work at the moment. We had the option when we first did that to put the ones like Palmerston North have put in, because Palmerston North has a lovely track, and Carterton have put in a rubberized. It's a rubberized cushion at the bottom of the post, so it actually wobbles. It actually moves around, and I think we will ultimately end up putting those in. So we'll cut the posts off that we've got, and we'll screw down the rubberized ones and put different posts and different signs.
It's a wee bit dark down there, John, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think that might be encouraging the young to vandalise stuff?
Yep. So we're in discussions with council at the moment about putting lighting on there, because there's two lights that go on to the half basketball court at night, so that's lit up at night.
Yeah.
And we're in discussions with council asking them to put a light for us on top of one of those poles to shine down into the cycle track. So we're asking.
Oh, that'd be good. Yes, because there's nothing there. That'd be what it is.
Much better.
Yeah, we're asking for that to be done. Please.
I thought there would have been one there. I hadn't sort of noticed as I've driven past at night.
Yeah, there are lights along the riverbank.
Yes.
On the back of it, along the riverbank, there's 3 light standards along there, which obviously in the past have been lit up at night. But no, it does need light. It needs some extra light on there at night. And of course, it would help. It would help just light the area up and make it more difficult. Yeah.
Well, that'd be good if that could have happened. Yeah.
Yep.
So also in the park, I mean, we've got the mini park. We've talked talked about that,
Yeah.
and the children's playground, but also there's been things done in the on the island, hasn't there? I don't know whether that's sort of come to a bit of a halt during lockdown.
Yeah, that's friends of the park. And some of our Rotary members are part of that. And every now and then there's a demand or a wish to do something in the island. In fact, it was wonderful because it was a real mess. And it's just been beautified. So they've taken out a lot of the timber and bush that was there, and put paths in there, and put in plantings, and it's
that'd be great, yeah.
And it's really, really good.
And Millennium Reserve, isn't it this weekend? Are you guys involved in the Millennium Reserve?
I'll be going down on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just bring a spade, they say, and away you go.
Because we planted, didn't we? Planted natives there. It was about this time last year, wasn't it?
Oh, no. Well, we're going back a bit. That was just an empty paddock, basically.
That's right.
With a bit of swamp and nothing else. So really, all the planting that you see in all the paths that are there were all done by Rotary. That bit of land, of course, is owned by the Marston's Trustlands Trust, but Rotary carried on the project of planting and designing, and we continue to look after Millennium Reserve.
But there are some other very interested people.
There are. We're lucky we've got good volunteers.
George Bain was really... And Kevin Worsley.
Yeah. Can you explain to people where it is, in case they don't know where that is? Because it is it's a lovely place to go
It was
through.
the bottom of my street. I used to live in Intermediate Street, and it's just at the bottom of the hill between Chapel Street and Intermediate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Hillcrest.
Yes, I don't think people realise just what a find it is when you go. And there's a lovely big area, isn't there, where we had a sausage sizzle sometime last year, and it was great.
The other asset that's getting beautified at the moment, of course, is our Rotary Club also built the toilet block at Henley Lake.
Oh yes, now tell me about that. Now what is happening there? Because I walk around there.
That's all been titivated up at the moment. That's been painted and refreshed, I guess, by council, which is great. Yeah. But that was a Rotary Club project.
What was that? The one down at Henley Lake? Because I wasn't quite sure.
Not by the car park. Just
yes, I know, because I walk past there, and then they've got all the barriers up at the moment. They're doing things.
Yeah. So that was built. That was completely built by Rotary as a Rotary project.
Oh, gosh.
That toilet block was.
Yeah.
That must have been before my time, John.
Before your time?
Gosh, how long have you been in Rotary?
Well, they told me the other night 33 years, which I thought, that's interesting.
My word, that's amazing. And you've been president?
I have been president.
Yeah.
How many times, John?
Just once.
Really?
I
was president pretty early on, actually. Like all those things you join and you very quickly get
put in. I know that I was put in quite quickly as a director when I first joined too, but I'm a bit of a newbie really with it. Yeah.
Well, you're used to handling people.
Yes. Children.
Children, yes. And we're all children.
Yeah. Oh no, it's been wonderful, and I think what's interesting about Rotary is the fact that each year we have a different president, and each president comes with their own. I won't call it, you could call it agenda, but ideas of what they're going to do. And I think that's great, that you can sort of keep up with that change and with the innovation that comes with a new president, which is really good.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. And that's one of the real benefits of changing our president each year. And as you say, each president brings a fresh style, and we all respond. It's good for the year. We have new enthusiasm for 12 months, and then we change again. And so that's one of the real benefits, I think, of having that process of not having a longer term.
I think so. Yes, I think that is really good. Yeah.
And they're all very capable people, and they have very good ideas and bring good people around them, and we move on and take on new projects, and so it's good.
So I think if I had a question there about why join Rotary. So John, we've got about two minutes. So 1 minute on why join Rotary, seeing you're the old hand.
Yeah, I think because originally when you joined Rotary, you went in a classification, so you weren't able to join Rotary unless a job classification came free. So mine, of course, was insurance. So until there was an opening for an insurance person, you couldn't join Rotary. But of course, those job classifications have gone now. So why would you join Rotary? I think Rotary gives me great companionship. I really enjoy going to the meeting because I meet people and I have interesting discussions, and we have interesting speakers, and we have a good meal, and I find it really, really good to belong to a body which does good in the community. You know, we raise a lot of money and we give a lot of money back, and it's very satisfying when you walk around town and think, gosh, you know, we've raised money for that, and we've done this and we've done that. I think people probably have a funny view of Rotary. You know, if you stop most people in the street and said, what do you think Rotary does? I think they'd probably have a completely different view to what we think we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe we should market ourselves differently, but I would think anybody joining gets a great deal of personal satisfaction. You get more back than you actually put in.
They say that the young people join because of projects, and fellowship comes second. But as you get older, fellowship becomes first, and then the projects take a lesser importance.
That's right.
But yeah, it's a feel good thing. You really, really feel good about doing stuff to help the community and to help anywhere really that require the help that's sometimes lacking.
Yeah, so I think so, and I agree with both of you about. I mean, when I joined, it was after being, teaching for years and being with a large staff and contacts with people, and suddenly you haven't got that contact. And I think it was just even though my dad was in Rotary, so I had grown up with it and I'd been in Rotary, but it was just coming into that network of fellowship and knowing that you were going to do things. And I mean, I was blown away when I started to look at all the achievements, that had happened with Marsden South. I mean, as you say, it's about a page and a half of the things that are around the town that we have been involved with, or Marsden South has been involved with, and all the others in the clusters. I'm not allowed to call them clusters, in the bubble of the wide wrapper.
Whatever.
Anyway, thank you so much. Both of you, and you've been listening, of course, to Rotary Matters, and we will be back now each month. Next month, I think it's going to be Rob Stockley from Carterton. So this is on the first Friday of the month, and then it is repeated on the first Saturday of the month, which will be tomorrow at 5 p.m. So thank you very much to both of my guests, Rob, our new president, and John for coming in, sort of a bit of the last minute because of Rebecca not being here. And so hopefully today the sun has shone, so hopefully we will have a very sunny weekend to look forward to. We hope.
We hope so. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Right. Thank
Enjoyed
you.
it.